Let's take an alternate look at the coverage from CBS on election night.
What I would say, and what the vice president has made very clear, is that she is not Joe Biden. And Donald Trump is not running against Joe Biden. He's running against Kamala Harris, a new generation of leadership in our party. And
I mean, we have heard that before.
A Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
For Kamala Harris, the path's slightly different. The expectations or the hope for Democrats is that they duplicate what Joe Biden did back in 2020.
It's Wisconsin, it's Michigan, it's Pennsylvania.
ABC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the 19 electoral votes in the state of Pennsylvania.
ABC is now projecting that Michigan will go for Donald Trump.
CNN projects that Donald Trump has won Wisconsin.
And so what is the one data point tonight that the Harris campaign is pointing to that makes them optimistic?
I edited out the woman in yellow's answer because there was some music playing in the background, but I'll summarize it here. So the host there said, what is the one data point that Kamala's campaign could be optimistic about? And then this other person pointed to long lines in college campuses. She's correct that young people do historically tend to vote Democratic. It's just, even before the election started, there were a lot of signs that Donald Trump was doing very well with young people. It's hard to say exactly how well based on exit polling.
Check out this rap and let me know your honest thoughts.
I think it's incredible. I think it's incredible.
Barron is a young guy who's a very good athlete, and he's a very smart person.
Is he helping you win over the Gen Z, the younger vote?
He is. He knows so much about it. Aiden Ross, I do some people that I wasn't so familiar with, different generation. He knows every one of them, and we've had tremendous success, as you know.
I like my suitcase.
So I've got to say, CBS's election coverage felt more balanced than some other networks, at least for the first half. There's some questionable takes towards the end, which I'll show, but listen to the story here, pretty funny, from Gail.
There. And then the woman that really got to me was Peaches, who was a bartender, mid-40s, black woman, who said, I'm not voting for either one of them. They haven't deserved my vote. And I said, how can you feel this way mid-40s in this country? But she said, I want her to win. How can she win if you're not going to go and vote?
Yeah.
That is so funny. That's a very fair question from Gail. Yeah, I want her to win, but I'm not going to vote for her.
But what is really different, Nora, is the way that they've gotten people to the polls. The Harris campaign ground game has been like a well-oiled machine, with 50 field offices spread across the state, with 110,000 volunteers since her launch, knocking on over 5 million doors. And this is something that they love talking about because
I've made fun of the ground game in other videos. I mean, I wonder in 2028 or just future elections, is this ground game knocking on doors going to be such a thing? I mean, let me know in the comments. If someone knocks on my door, I just find that annoying. They hand you like maybe a pamphlet, whatever it is. Oh, here's some stuff I can like read about. I just would find that annoying. I don't know. Everyone has a phone. Everyone has the internet. How much is knocking on doors really going to help? I don't know.
Something that I just received from a Harris Walz campaign representative that said that they are focused on the ground game. They say close races come down to turnout and ground game. We have the ground game advantage.
I am the one who knocks. On doors here in Nevada for Jackie Rosen, for Kamala Harris.
The men under 30?
The bro vote is basically even, which is not great for Kamala Harris based on the traditional patterns of voting.
So I wonder, let's just take stock of where we are, because
the bro vote, we got a new group.
You have said that he's doing better among young men. He's the bro vote. She's underperforming with women. Right. If these exit polls are correct. And in Georgia and North Carolina, she's also underperforming Joe Biden among independents.
Let's start with Latino men, for example. Trump is winning them 54-45 right now. And she's only winning 61% of Latinas. Those are low numbers. Those are not comfortable numbers. The other one.
So again, to CBS's defense, at least for like the first half of their stream, for the most part, they were actually giving some negative information for Harris. If you watch some other networks and didn't check your phone, didn't check social media, you would think basically up until the very moment or a few minutes before it was called for Donald Trump that it was like a 50-50 toss-up race.
There was a belief that women, Republican women in particular, would go into the booth and vote their values, vote their conscience.
And they may still.
And they kept saying, you don't have to tell anybody, it's your own private vote. And what we're seeing early on, that does not appear to be the case.
This is national.
So you see, it was not all good for CBS. What does that mean? You're going to go in there and vote your values if you're a Republican woman? If you're a Republican woman and you go in there and vote your values, as she said, would you not be voting Republican? What does that even mean? You're going to vote your values and just completely vote for policies probably that you've been against for most of your life and vote for Kamala? And that whole secret Kamala thing, ugh.
For Harris is this idea that there is a secret vote of women, right, who are not willing to say to their husbands, to their families, that they're going to go and vote for Harris. There was an exchange between Charlie Kirk, or I should say both Charlie Kirk and Jesse Waters, who's a Fox News host out there talking about this potential phenomenon. Let's watch what each of them had to say.
It is the embodiment of the downfall of the American family. She's coming in with her sweet husband, who probably works his tail off to make sure that she can go, and have a nice life and provides for the family. And then she lies to him saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. And then she votes for Kamala Harris as her little secret in the voting booth.
And if I found out Emma was going into the voting booth and pulling the lever for Harris, that's the same thing as having an affair. That violates the sanctity of our marriage.
Yes.
What else is she keeping from me?
Exactly.
What else has she been lying about?
Look, I don't know what degree Jesse Waters is like putting that on for the camera, being half joking. Still, his position and Charlie Kirk's position is more correct than the idea of like keeping something from your spouse and then voting Kamala, but being like, oh yeah, I actually voted for Trump. That's ridiculous. It's incredible that they made that commercial for one, and that a bunch of people defended the idea of that.
The Harris campaign remains incredibly confident, in part because what transpired just up the street a few days ago seems to be paying off for the Harris campaign, not the Trump campaign. The Madison Square Garden event, where that comedian said all those nasty things about Puerto Rican people and others across the country, it is registered. They noticed this morning that turnout in the 3 most Puerto Rican dominant wards around Philadelphia had exceeded the 2020 numbers already, or 79% of the total had already shown up by lunchtime today. That's a good sign. You saw her last week campaigning across Philadelphia as if she was running for mayor. They put her in front.
I thought those Puerto Rican comments might matter a little bit, way less than all the mainstream media. Turns out they hardly mattered, if they even did at all.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Thankfully, my sweet abuelita wasn't here to hear that disgusting remark, but if she was alive today, I think she would say, Tony Hinchcliffe, go f yourself. And yes, the Wall Street Journal can quote me on that.
And we saw some of the Puerto Rican voters who, one woman was on the fence, but after that comment from the comedian, she said, nope, I'm now leaving Trump. But I said, but Trump wasn't the one who said it. They said it didn't matter. He didn't stop it. He didn't stop it. And they took great offense at that. And I
think this was the big thing. There were just some anecdotal stories of people saying, oh, now I'm going to switch my vote. It didn't really show up in the data, again, in a meaningful way that I ever saw.
They think he took too long to even apologize for it and even own up to it.
But we had Senator Marco Rubio on Face the Nation Sunday just flat out dismissing that he's handling outreach to the Hispanic population for the Trump campaign and saying, oh, no, this, he's not going to be in the cabinet, dismissing it altogether.
Is she referring to Tony Hinchcliffe there? Like Marco Rubio was going around telling people, oh, don't worry about that comedian. He's not going to be in Trump's cabinet. I doubt he was saying that. What would Tony Hinchcliffe's job be in a Trump cabinet? Secretary of Humor? Secretary of posting funny jokes on X? Hispanic voters aren't a monolith, but roughly about an hour later in the stream, they bring up some numbers on Hispanic voters.
Other side.
Just to give you the national Latino vote, Harris is up by 5 points.
Biden won it by 21 points.
That
That's the
should
national
be
number.
so concerning to the Harris campaign.
Nora, it's funny that Robert Costa just heard from Senator Ron Johnson saying he's a little nervous about Wisconsin. I just heard from a top Democratic operative who says he's worried about Wisconsin, too.
Now let's look at the other group, which is the one that Donald Trump does well in, and that's white voters without a college degree. Now, you see he is creaming Kamala Harris 65 to 33 among white voters without a college degree. So that's a 32-point difference. But that's a little bit less than he did than in 2020 when he beat Joe Biden with that same group by 35 points.
There's always so much emphasis on election night with this college versus non-college educated voter. Does this even matter? I mean, you go to school from the ages of 18 to 22, and now when you're, say, 60 years old, that's supposed to be this like massive data point to determine how you're going to vote. I don't really get it. Maybe it matters a little bit, but I think there are so many other things that these networks, etc., people could be focusing on to determine how somebody is likely to vote.
And Gail, we've been here now for several hours, and we're getting a little bit of a sense of how the night is going.
Yeah, and it seems that if you're a Donald Trump supporter, you're feeling very confident and encouraged. And if you're a Kamala Harris supporter, you're feeling a little worried at this particular time, although we keep saying...
She sounds thrilled, doesn't she?
Still, there's still a lot of votes to be counted. People say they still are holding out hope, even though at this particular time she seems to be underperforming in all the things that they thought she would do well. What is happening to Kamala Harris's campaign at this particular point, even though people still have hope?
Well, I think the vote is still being counted in Pennsylvania.
Troubling, though, Nora, is that she seems to be underperforming in areas that they thought she would do well, certainly among women, certainly among the reproductive rights, certainly among some of the black voters. That's why I think people are so concerned at this particular point.
Gail, thank you. Want to bring in Robert Costa on that note. Robert?
Just briefly to add.
They do not sound very happy to me.
And it's not just Republican senators. These will be Republican senators, very different than the Republican senators who were there when Donald Trump won in 2016. Jeff Flake, John McCain, Mitt Romney, those three are all gone. And these are Republican senators who grow up out of and into the Trump politics. It'll be if Donald Trump wins, a different Washington, different Republican majority.
And yes, together, we will make America great again. There you go.
Nora, I'm listening to you, John, and I'm thinking about some of the things that we have heard over the course of this campaign, and you'll have to forgive me on some of these, but, you know, from the former president, the vulgarity that we've heard, talking about Arnold Palmer. We all remember that comment, yes. and the locker room, and doing all the Joe Rogan podcasts, and the Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off at MSG, and all of this. I think
the gesticulating with the microphone.
The gesticulation at the microphone. That so much of America went, I'm sorry, what is happening? How is that possibly going to appeal to people? And what we're seeing tonight.
She's almost making her point in reverse. These are the statements from the media that make average people go, what are you talking about? Doing the Joe Rogan podcast, you're going to throw into that? Doing the biggest show on earth, I mean, that's very smart politically. Or Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off. Why is that supposed to influence anybody, good or bad? It's like a cool move he used to do because people know him as a wrestler. What are you throwing that in there for? Like, these are the comments from the media to, again, she's making like an inverse point. These are the comments that make people go, why is the media focusing on that?
How is that possibly going to appeal to people? And what we're seeing tonight is that it actually is not a turnoff to many people, to many of the male supporters, particularly who sat in MSG and cheered it on. And that was particularly a very bro-y feel, a very dark rally that we all talked about in the wake of it. And the question was,
I don't know if I like the word bro being basically thrown in with very dark.
Is this going to help Trump expand his base? And what you just said right now, it actually very well may be.
He won bros in North Carolina by 21 points.
Mm-hmm.
I like how he just throws that in like everyone's supposed to know what you're talking about. He won bros. I mean, maybe the election did not go the way the media would have wanted, but at least they got a new group to throw everybody into, the bro. Is bro, though, a negative term to be throwing around? I think it depends on the context. I think in general, I don't really care, but Andrew Schultz had this take on the word bro.
I guess they call all of y'all the bro podcast.
Yeah, I think that's their pejorative for having a male fan base.
Yeah, I don't think that's a fair assessment. But it
is like mostly male listeners, but I think they use the term bro to like be a little bit to undermine the audience a little bit. Like
I agree with him in the context that we just saw when that newscaster said very bro-y, very dark, or whatever she said, word for word. But just to say the bros in general, I don't know. What do you think? Is bro a negative way to describe something or just a generic way of describing a voting bloc?
Came back to immigration, really hard on immigration and the economy. But when I asked, who would you trust to babysit your children? Nobody. Only one person chose Donald Trump. And I just think when you put it in that context.
What is the point of asking that question? I really am not sure what she means by this. I mean, you're running for president. You're running to be a babysitter. I just think the whole question is unfair to Donald Trump. What does that even mean?
I'd like to know what that says about us as a country. What does this mean? John, is it
And that's just like the pearl clutching, the hysteria. What does this mean? What does this say about us as a country? This is the type of stuff that makes the media essentially impossible to trust at face value. You don't know when what they're saying is actually serious and when it's just like manufactured hysteria. They crank it up to 10 all the time. How do you watch and know as a viewer what you should be concerned about?
He did very well, Donald Trump, with educated white men and white women, but it didn't seem to matter how
non-college educated.
Non-college educated, yes, but it didn't seem to matter.
No, non-college educated, the uneducated people. Make sure you get that right.
The co-chair of the Harris campaign saying it's okay, everybody can go home. We're not going to have a decision tonight, and the vice president is not coming out to address, but we'll speak to the crowd tomorrow.
That is not going to land in a comforting way with Harris supporters, I think. And Nancy said it. We've all been talking about it, how extremely reminiscent this feels to 2016 and the campaign manager, John Podesta, coming out to those microphones. I was in that.
She's right about that.
I've been here a long time, and it's been a long night, and it's been a long campaign. So we're not going to have anything more to say tonight. Donald Trump will be the 45th president of the United States.
The Trump campaign feels very good, and they mentioned the gender gap in the regard that there was so much made about this so-called silent Harris supporter who might, vote for Harris and not talk about it. And they're saying that, that just didn't pan out. Lindsay?
Are you seeing it?
That's for sure.
There are other news organizations that are now awarding this to the former president, and he is set to take the stage here in the coming minutes. Will address the world and likely declare victory because it appears to be heading in that direction. What's also happening, though, Republican Senate candidates winning across.
Is that Tom Homan?
We didn't get a chance to talk to Gary Cohn about all of this, but when you think of two of the items in the Trump agenda, the promises he's going to keep, tariffs, 40% of the American economy is trade related. So even if Trump doesn't do the full Megillah, you're talking about massive disruption or plan for massive disruption in 40% of the economy or more.
I've been thinking about tariffs lately because they've been in the news. I really think Donald Trump is correct on tariffs for a number of reasons. I'm not going to go into a long thing, but for other countries that do not embrace free market capitalism to the degree at least the United States does, I don't think it's then fair for those countries to just be like, whatever, we'll just have our companies sell product into the U.S. There's other countries with more regulations, higher taxes, less dynamism, more kind of structures in place that probably benefit sort of like the haves in those societies than just be like, whatever, we'll just sell to the Americans. It's all good. America has all these trade deficits with all these other countries. When Trump talks about, we're subsidizing all these other countries, I mean, you could argue that he's correct. The U.S. consumers buy product from all these other countries. Wouldn't it be better for the other countries to just embrace capitalism more? Maybe lower their taxes, maybe lower regulation, create a more even playing field, more GDP for everybody. I mean, I think Donald Trump on tariffs makes a lot of sense.
And then immigration. so much of the work. You want to build all that new housing? Who does the building of that new housing? The people that Donald Trump wants to deport. And when you think about just the economic,
I mean, that's pretty oversimplified generalization,
upheaval that he's promising, and how that will cycle through. You know, we've been talking about the voters who feel like he heard them and understands them and will fight for them. But the policies he's advocating for, how those match up with those expectations, that will be fascinating to watch.
So basically the subtext of what he's saying there is people that voted for Trump, they may not like what he does on immigration. They may not like what he does with regard to tariffs. I mean, it sounds just like an out-of-touch statement, like, oh, these people that voted for Trump, at least he's questioning, are they really going to like the policies that he has in place? Are the policies that Trump is going to advocate for and do, are they actually going to benefit Trump's voters? I mean, again, that just sounds to me like a very out-of-touch statement. So here they're talking about the vote amongst women.
The vice president got 54% of the vote, and Donald Trump got 44% of the vote. So Kamala Harris got 10 points more than Donald Trump, but Joe Biden got 15 points more. This is a post-Roe going away, post the conviction of Donald Trump.
It's almost inexplicable.
Well,
why is it almost inexplicable? Is it just because, oh, Kamala's a woman, so women probably should vote for her? Is that the analysis here? Remember how I said the first half of the CBS stream here was pretty fair, pretty balanced? I don't think you can really say that about the second half as much.
Can I just say one other thing, one other dog that didn't bark? Republicans for Harris. Kamala Harris spent a lot of time, campaigned a lot with Liz Cheney. Only 5% of Republicans in the exit polls voted for Harris. It was 6% for Biden in 2020. All of those Republicans that were going to come over to the Harris campaign.
She brought them all to Pennsylvania. They were in Bucks County, weren't they? They were all on stage with her.
I was there.
Yeah.
This is actually a good point. Every time I seem to turn on a Kamala rally leading up to the election, it was her doing those like country over party rallies with people like Liz Cheney.
We need to be able to have these good, intense debates about issues. We are all here together because we love our country. We love our country.
Because nobody has a corner on the good ideas. They actually come from many places. And one should, especially if they want to be a leader, one should welcome those ideas.
I'm not sure what that accomplished, as they just outlined there on the panel. My theory is, total speculation, it was establishment Dems and establishment Republicans who were friends, who just kind of overestimated their political support, and were like, I don't know, maybe some of our former constituents will still support this.
So Bob, where was that secret women Republican vote we kept hearing about? That they're going to say one thing to their friends and their spouses, but they're going to get in the booth and they're going to make another decision. What happened to them?
I never saw it.
Yeah.
I never saw it.
So this was brought up multiple times throughout the night.
Truly remarkable, what looks like a sweeping victory for Donald Trump.
Honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president.
And certainly he will claim the mandate from the results tonight. Let's bring in CBS News.
So with that said, I'll finish the video. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.